AIML Innovations has developed and is commercializing proprietary signal processing and deep learning algorithms to transform complex biometric data into clinical insights. CEO and Chairman Paul Duffy is here providing an update on the progress of AIML's technology, commercial development, and expected regulatory approval path in 2026. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. Please remember this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Paul, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Martin. A real pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to both you and our shareholders. Very excited about giving the update today.
All right. Well, why don't you start off with the overview presentation, and then we can get into some details thereafter. Thank you.
I love it. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of our current future shareholders for your patience, for your participation, your faith, and frankly, your prior funding for what I'm about to show you. I think you'll be quite excited about what we've accomplished in the year 2025 and thoroughly excited about the vectors and the opportunities that we're about to step into for 2026. To do that, I'm just going to, let me click on the screen here. There we go, forward looking. For an agenda today, there's really three key things I want to touch on. The first are the markets, of course, what we do and why we do it. Our year-end milestones, what did we accomplish over the term of 2025? And then some visibility and a glimpse into the year ahead. All of that is a bit of a preamble so that we can quickly jump into almost an Ask Me Anything Q&A. Before I kick off, what I do want to do is I want to highlight and thank all the members of the AIML Neural Cloud team. You're going to come to learn through the course of this presentation, our ranks have swelled. We have some of the absolute best people on the planet working with us daily, focused on our mission to help solve one of the world's biggest problems. And so with that, let me begin. Number one, I'm going to give you a little bit of context. Some of these slides you'll notice will be quite, I'll call dense. I'm not going to read them all. I am going to highlight a few key areas, but for those that are tracking us, what we're doing, where we're going, if you'd like to really double click down, I encourage you to review these. I'm happy to make this deck available for you to review. But what I really want to emphasize is at a global level, there is a crisis that has been ongoing for many decades, and it is only getting worse. And that is the global cardiovascular disease crisis. I'm not going to get too deep into it. I think everybody who's on this call has either been directly or perhaps one network connect away from somebody who is suffering from some form of cardiovascular disease. But really the first bullet on this slide says it all. It's from the World Health Organization. Over 1 billion people are projected to have CVDs by 2050, with about 32% of all global deaths due to CVDs. This is significant, and I'd like you to just, as you're going through today's presentation, think of that in the back of your mind. This is a humanity scale issue. When it comes to cardiovascular disease, it is the number one problem affecting humans. Literally, cardiovascular disease is at the top. You got a bunch of daylight, and then all the other ailments can add up and become the next most serious. So we are tackling one of the biggest challenges in front of humanity. So what's more important, and I'm going to read some of these slides almost verbatim just to anchor us as we go through the presentation today. But in the context of cardiovascular disease, we enter into the world of ECGs. These are electrocardiograms, and they play a critical role in enabling early detection, risk assessment, and the timely intervention of cardiovascular disease. In fact, for those of you that are aware of it, an ECG is a non-invasive test. It's something that you actually, and I've got a few props here, if you can see them, you literally put them on your body, and they detect the heart rate's electrical activity over time, and they're used to detect anomalies or abnormalities. The ECG itself helps to diagnose things like arrhythmias, heart attacks, cardiac ischemia, and it comes in a variety of different report formats, and there's a plethora of devices that are used to do the recording. What we do and why it matters. Well, we take the raw ECG signals and we turn them into powerful, rich, easy to analyze data tables. In fact, we live at that optimal point of leverage where the least amount of input is going to give us the greatest amount of output. And that is between the signal capture and the signal exploit. So I want you to think about that. Basically, from the time the signal is captured off of your body and it's actually delivered downstream to an application, we insert our world-class technology to ensure that every exploit, every downstream use of that signal can maximize the diagnostic yield made available. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. The reason that matters is the way we would exploit, that is that downstream packet, is we would deliver a clean labeled signal so that everything that follows from the classification, from the triage and the interpretation, it becomes faster, clearer, and more reliable. The technology that we've built, I'm going to go through it in detail today, but it is seriously exciting. It's one engine, max yield, that allows us to take that signal and create three very specific outputs that themselves comprise a data packet that fall through a commercialization pathway. So what do I mean by that? Well, once we take that signal, we neuralize it. We actually create a beat-to-beat label matrix. A glorified Excel spreadsheet could have a few rows of heartbeats, could have hundreds of thousands of rows to millions of rows of heartbeats, all labeled with your P, your QRS, and your T wave put into the spreadsheet. We then construct automatically a time series stream utilizing that beat-to-beat set of intervals, which is phenomenal for everything from rhythm trends to longitudinal analysis. And then using both of those spreadsheets, we're able to go in and create an event and anomaly table. This is significant because we can detect arrhythmias, signal artifacts, and other irregular events. So together, those three components make up the exploit of what we're able to do with max yield. And then, of course, what we do with that is we put it into incumbent clinical tools or wellness apps. So this is this very robust market I'm about to talk to that's currently in play today. And then there's, of course, our products, which I'll show you today, which we call cardio yield, what I believe will soon to become the next iteration, the next generation of cardiac diagnostic support tools. And then Insight 360, which is really a visualization tool. When you see the quantum of data that we're able to pull from not just one heartbeat, but from 100,000 to millions of heartbeats, a visualization tool is critical so you can ask the right questions and get the right results. But more importantly, in the middle of all of it is max yield. It's at the center. We play in two very specific market categories or segments. And I like our shareholders. I know some of you have heard this before, but there's the regulated and the unregulated. So in the regulated market, what we're looking to do here is utilize max yield and cardio yield to participate in the area where we're monetizing portions of this 100 million ECG market that's happening every year in the US. In fact, globally, there's well over 300 million of these ECGs, medical ECGs conducted every year. When we look at the wellness market, these are the unregulated space. This is, again, a frothy market. It's growing. Everybody has been playing with their smartwatches, their rings, their wearables, their chest straps. I mean, you name it. If you've got a PPG and you can measure your heart rate, if you've got ECG, you can check out everything on your ECG with our technology. You combine the two, it's very formidable. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that through the day as well. But those are the two principal market categories that we live in. Now, why do we do this? First of all, our goal and our mission is to literally disrupt and to demonetize the ECG market. Our goal, frankly, is to monetize well over 1 billion ECG files over the next decade. That's a bold statement. And I know if you think about it, even if it's pennies to a few dollars, substantially that is huge from a commercial point of view. That's what we're chasing. But I want you to also think about it in the context of the social good that we will do. When you think of countries, governments, healthcare budgets, the bloat, the cost, and the expense around cardiovascular disease is considerable. It hits everybody financially. This small little technology that we're talking about today, it is the fulcrum. It's the leverage point to help reduce those costs and to make available at a global level cardiovascular diagnostics. just have a look at a couple of the points on this slide. The one I'll bring you to is this one down here where it says every second more than 9 medical ECGs are performed worldwide. In the course of this presentation, there will be over 32,000 medical ECGs performed at a global level. Think about that for a moment. The demand for this is huge. Our ability to knock back these numbers, to make them more available, is now. We hold within our grasp the true promise of AI and healthcare, and that's what drives this team every single day. Let me tell you a little bit about what we've accomplished in 2025, our milestones. We'll begin with people. We'll then talk about our products. I'll dive into our technology, intellectual property. I'll give a little bit of background, as Martin had mentioned at the top, where we're headed with regulatory. It's very exciting. And then ultimately, what everybody wants to know is, hey, what commercial traction are you getting? So I'm proud to announce we've got some great momentum. We've issued a lot of press releases. I'm going to talk very specifically about that, and I'm sure we'll have some fun in the Q&A as well. So let me jump right into it. As you guys know, I've done this a few times. Back of the napkin, a few hundred people. It is a run like no other. It is what drives us. It is our mission every day. But frankly, you can't do it alone. We are building one of the best teams in the industry. I cannot state to our shareholders how proud I am of the people that are in this business. When I joined AIML in September 2023, there were like 5 people literally in the business. Today, of those 5, I think Blake is about the only guy that's still here. But we have added well over 50 people, predominantly over the last 8 to 12 months, focused on this mission and these outcomes that I'm about to share with you today. It is a phenomenal team. We're building it very judiciously. We're not adding overhead bloat. We're scaling for growth, and we're being very capital wise with the steward of our money. But I want you to understand we've got about 22 full-time people now actively building the technologies and going into the market. There's over 25 people working part-time as consultants, building this system for us as we go. And this I'm going to talk about. It's quite interesting. And we have been blessed. And I'm telling you from as your CEO and chairman, I'm telling you we are blessed to have 5 of the best medical advisors the country of Canada could ever offer us. We'll talk a little bit about these gentlemen as we go through this, but it is absolutely phenomenal that they are part of our team. Let me tell you where the people are deployed. And I think you'll find this interesting because as I continue to update quarter over quarter, you'll see these numbers move around, but it's always kind of fun to get a sense of it. So there's about 18 folks building the product. And I mean, here in Toronto, in Edmonton, in Barcelona, and in the Ukraine, fantastic team. We've got clinical operators who are going in these are the cardio techs that are working with us, principally part-time, helping us label, helping us diagnose, helping us work through the system to build efficiencies into it. We've got a great team on the commercial and the revenue side. We've got an excellent leadership team. But more importantly, I'm telling you, I'm very proud of this. In June, we made a conscious decision as a business to institutionalize the regulatory and quality management requirements of our business. It is without a doubt the most cost-effective way and the quickest way for us to get ahead and own our destiny in the regulatory pathways. So I did what I've always done in my prior companies. I went out and I started top grading. If you just go to the website, top grade, I give you the whole playbook. But the truth of the matter is you got to go out and you got to recruit great people. You got to screen them. You got to put them through behavioral interviews. You got to actually get right into the psyche of what they've done. And I can tell you the 2 candidates that finally landed on our shore and joined our team are absolutely exceptional. These people, both Murnaz and Shiva, have come into the team. They've taken everything we've worked on. Every single body you see on this slide right now works with them in the pursuit of our regulatory pathway. This is solely around FDA, Health Canada. We'll talk a little bit about Jamaica, but because we've institutionalized our regulatory discipline, we can now focus on other geographies around the world confidently. Finally, we've got a nice basket of folks helping me with the corporate and IR, and I think you'll hear a lot more of that as we go through the next probably 90 days, Q1 next year. All right, let's get into the products. Mid to late 2024, I had delivered to our shareholders pretty much a promise that I would build a platform that within the context of AIML, we would be able to scale, stock, and grow a business, one with a durable, sustainable line of revenue. And I am pleased today to announce that we've accomplished that. We have what I believe to be one of the world's best ECG data intelligence platforms. The anchor is max yield. Our visualization technology, Insight 360, and our world-class cardiac diagnostic support tool, CardioYield, form an impressive stack that we have begun to already monetize and bring into market. And this is pre-clearance. As we go through the clearance and regulatory capability, we will only see the footprint and the revenue expand around this stack. I'm very proud of the team that's working on it. It is a multifaceted, cross-functional group of parties. We have the best EPs, electrophysiologists, the best cardiologists, the best cardio techs, the best product managers, and frankly, the best designers and coders cranking on this every single day, focused on our mission to monetize 1 billion ECGs over the next decade. It's very exciting. So I'm going to take you through the tech, but as background, I want you to think of the following. We designed everything I'm about to show you today to be 100% device agnostic. Why? Because they come in every flavor you can imagine. ECG has been around roughly 60 years. It is, by AI standards, a dinosaur of a technology. But truthfully, after decades of use, there's an entire industrial complex built around cardiovascular disease. The ECG device themselves are a central component and party to that. So it was crazy for us to think about building a technology that was single-threaded against one, two, or even three devices. No, we needed to be completely device agnostic. So with that as a bit of a background, I want to take you through a little bit of a journey of a heartbeat. Think about it in the context that we are literally device agnostic. We can take a signal from any of the devices that I showed you and literally take it and pump it through max yield. So imagine you've got 3 signals coming in, we capture them, we put them through max yield, it identifies and literally labels the trace inside the noise, it finds the heartbeat, it cleans it up, and it begins to label it. And I don't mean like a little peek here, peek there. I mean, it goes into literally an exhaustive view of the P wave, the QRS, and the T wave, typically the start and the stop of those 3. Now that's one heartbeat. Think about that across 100,000 for 24 hours, and then think about it again as a few million over a 7-day, 14-day, or 13-day window. That data goes into a glorified Excel spreadsheet, which then fits into a series of time series spreadsheets as well as the anomaly detection. What do we do with that? We take it and we put it into our amazing visualization technology called Insight 360. The quantum of data capture that we get is incredible. And so we have a tool that is phenomenal. It allows you to go in and package any type of report, ask any type of question, but it pales in comparison to what we're able to do with CardioYield. CardioYield takes that same data packet and it is redefining the workflow for cardiac diagnostics at the clinic and hospital level. In fact, over the decade, who knows where this will go? Everybody may have a version of this sitting on their computer, on their tablet, or on their phone. This product is being purposely designed. We took a clean sheet approach to design from the ground up with the best cardiologists, the best EPs, and the best cardio techs to deliver a product that essentially takes the workflow at the clinic level and highly optimizes it for quality and for throughput. So that's what I'm going to show today with our technology stack. Of course, all of this is anchored on our patented max yield neural networks. That's our X factor. And I'm super proud of the team that works on this. And a shout out to Dr. Alan Rabinovitz. About a year and a bit ago, I'm sitting with him. We're at our office in Vancouver. I'm talking long ECGs, talking labeling. He's kicking around all this stuff. And he turns to me and he says, Paul, what you've got here is the maximum amount of diagnostic yield that would be possible in this type of recording. And it was from that moment forward, we coined the term max yield. As I go through our trademarks, we've even trademarked it when I update you on our IP. But ultimately, the plan here was if you can see it on the screen, there's a light gray signal in the background. That's the actual raw recording coming from one of these ECG devices. What we do is we neuralize it and we find these stripes that you see. It's the start and the stop of the P wave, the start and the stop of the QRS, and the start and the stop of the T wave. This is what max yield does. It leaves the noise in the signal, it penetrates the noise, and it finds the actual measurement and then labels it. That's the breakthrough. And we don't just do it for one heartbeat. You can see here on the left, we've got basically a noisy signal. The dark represents the neuralized, that is the true signal. But on the right, what you're looking at here are the actual data points that we're able to go in, label, and identify. This, in fact, is the new gold standard for how you measure heartbeats. We're very excited about that. Working with our cardio techs, they're finding great utility and throughput, etc. And I encourage folks to have a look at this after the presentation. There's some pretty phenomenal statistics that we're able to generate. We, of course, took this technology, 15 of the best cardio techs, and we put a bake-off in. And I'm pleased to announce that our neural net finished literally second out of the 15, and it's only going to get better. That is, of the 15 professionally trained cardio technicians, our neural net was able to label better than 14 of those. And we're just going to continue to improve it as we go forward. That's the true promise of AI in healthcare. Let me talk a little bit about Insight 360. We love this tool. As we go through Q1 next year, we will open this up, a little bit of a limited pilot if an interested shareholder. If you can get a one lead ECG device, strap it on your chest, wear it overnight, upload your file to Insight 360, I'm telling you, you will be shocked at how much information and data you can pull from something as simple as that. For those of you that live in the world of being quantified and biohacking, it's a toy when you've got your Apple Watch, Samsung, your Ring, any of the PPG-based formats come into the world of a single lead ECG, which by the way, you can buy on Amazon for $100. You will not be able to get a better packet of data about your heart health off of any device out there. And i360 was built specifically to fill that market. In fact, we're so confident that this is going to work well. I believe personally there will be a very strong market vector for single lead ECG. And I also believe as we get into that space, utilizing a tool like Insight 360 for performance athletics, for weight loss, for sleep and recovery could become the next new norm out there. So we're very excited about the tool. Lots of utility in research. So if you're in academia, drug development, if you're looking at areas to trial, again, ECG is a central component to your mix of data. Having a tool like Insight 360 allows you to bang on that data in a highly qualified way, easily. All web enabled, very easy to use. Okay, let's talk a little bit about cardio yield. This product I cannot say enough about. The cardiologists, the electrophysiologists, members of our advisory board, our software development teams, engineers, everybody involved in this are just crushing it. This tool is built to basically completely disrupt the Holter market. And what I mean by that is we'll go through it, but it's all about capacity. Being able to do more with less, being able to do it at a higher level of quality and efficacy. These are the promises of AI, and I believe we've been able to realize that even as early in our version 1 of this. We're already into version 1.5. Version 2 is in development, and version 2.5 will probably be available by the time we clock out of Q1. So this is getting rapid development and rapid improvements, all by the pilots and all by the people that are using the technology today. It's very exciting. If you're in a clinic right now, I'm going to paint you a little picture. There's a technician who literally hooks you up. You go away, you come back, your recording goes in, and there's literally a technician that can handle probably 3 to 5 of these particular cases a day. Now, you remember right at the beginning of the conversation, I said every second there's about 9 medical ECGs performed worldwide. In fact, over the course of this particular discussion, there'll be about 32,000. Well, have you ever wondered why it takes so long to get a Holter report back from your clinic? I mean, there is some administration issues, but the fact of the matter is, if you can only get 3 to 5 of those pushed out per technician per day, all of a sudden backlogs, delays, things start to happen. That's in addition to all the normal stuff that would occur with noisy artifacting, heavy tracing, fatigue, the ability to scale and higher, et cetera, et cetera. The fact of the matter is, ECG data volumes are growing, but clinics don't have the tools to keep pace. And so,
Paul,
what's
sorry
that?
to interrupt. Can you just, I don't like interrupting in the middle, but the Holter test, can you just give like a 30-second explanation for those who maybe don't know what it is, just to explain what it is and how it's used by cardiologists and doctors?
Yeah, sure. Well, so a Holter test, guys, is literally a device, typically 3 leads. If you've got shortness of breath, you meet your physician suggests you go look at a cardiologist. Cardiologist says, you know what? Let's have a look at what's happening with your heart. You literally get hooked up, like you see the gentleman here on the image, with a 3 lead Holter, and you go away for a day, 2 days, a week, 14 days, sometimes a month. You come back and the file is recorded on this device, and then it is literally uploaded into, I'll just jump ahead here, into a system at the clinic. And what the clinic will do is they will then begin to process that recorded file to produce a Holter report, which will then go back to the cardiologist or the referring physician so he may sit or she may sit with the patient. And they'll take that information and they'll explain to the patient what they believe is happening with their heart. Now, this could be in addition to an echocardiogram and some other tests, but ultimately the ECG is the beginning of that cardiovascular diagnostic journey. Okay? Now, when that recording comes into the clinic, there's a couple of things that are happening today, and then those that use cardio yield, here's what they're experiencing. Number one, the report gets generated. Oftentimes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be a few hours. When they use cardio yield, because of the way we label and how we process, it's minutes. When they're in actually looking at the report itself, they're hunting and they're looking for beat correction, mostly because there's a lot of noise in the signal. In our case, we don't have that problem. We process, we allow the tech to validate, they don't have to hunt. Huge time saver. Things like noise and false positives, they get removed. The main thing here is that each technician can really only handle a certain number of Holters per day. In our case, because of the way we've automated, we've set ourselves a benchmark to do at a minimum 2 to 3 times more throughput per technician. My belief is as we get through the back end of 26 and into 27, those numbers will grow considerably. Why? Because our neural nets get smarter, our software gets adapted and tuned to the life cycle at the clinic, and the technicians begin to use the technology for its real purpose, which is for them to apply clinical judgment as opposed to having to scroll and make cleanup. The final thing I'll say is every time one of these Holters get produced, it's often inconsistent and variable in how it is reported back upstream. What we've been doing is developing some amazing standardized and auto-populated reports. Again, this all helps with the efficiency and the capacity. So if I was to say what's changed between the current state and what cardio yield will offer, it's very simple. Use max yield to neuralize the recording. Use cardio yield to develop the Holter report, but more importantly, use your technicians for what they were educated for, what they're trained for. And that's to focus on clinical judgment, not on having to scroll mindlessly through pages and pages, editing stuff and cleaning it up. Let them do what they were trained for. That's the promise of cardio yield. Again, what we do is we upload it, we neuralize, we use cardio yield to view and validate, and then we report and pass it on downstream. Super simple and easy for a clinic to adopt. In fact, what we've been doing in our pilots that I'll share with you under our commercialization is we literally go in, we present this video on the right, we walk them through how it works. There's no hardware to update. It's a simple integration. They can easily A/B or pilot and benchmark the benefits using their existing system through cardio yield, and then it's days to train and go live. It's that quick. That's the benefit of a modern web-based piece of software. Lots of great testimonials about it. Think you should have a look at these. I'm very excited. As we go through the quarter, we'll clearly talk about where we're going with cardio yield. We'll open it up so folks can play with it, but it is an absolutely great product. So just to conclude on the product update, what I mentioned to shareholders in 2024 was that we needed the platform. We've spent the better part of the year doing just that. And today, what I'm proud to announce is that we do have what I believe, and you will come to see as one of the world's best ECG data intelligence platforms. It's critical because it fits into multiple market segments. In every case, it's quicker, it's less costly, and it's better in its ability to maximize the diagnostic yield and help all the downstream exploits. So that's a little bit of an update on where we've got to. It's been a very busy year on this, and I don't see it letting up as we go through 2026. Let me talk now about our technology and our intellectual property, patents and trademarks specifically. As you guys know, we work with Wolf Greenfield SAC, Dan Radoy and his team. These people are the best on the planet when it comes to getting this type of protection around our technology. We've worked with them now for almost a full year. It is a day in, day out effort. They're part of our team. We have phenomenal, phenomenal technology. A couple of weeks ago, we announced the grant of our first patent. Very broad, very little prior art. This was around the original long ECG that AIML acquired in from Naiad Labs to form the neural cloud. So this was our first attempt at describing our training and neural net technology. I can tell you since then that we have 10x'd the amount of patent and specificity, the 10x'd the proprietary and patented specificity of our technology. In other words, we have gone incredibly deep and incredibly narrow on a lot of our information. I don't tend to disclose this too much because, to be frank, it's our secret sauce, but it is unbelievable how the worlds of signals, AI, and neural nets are colliding, and you're only going to see it move faster and faster. We are in a super unique position because not only do we have a great technology, but we're building success upon success, and we will continue to do that. Another thing I'll point out is that we have gone about and registered marks for cardio yield, for max yield, and for a term we call body OS. We believe that we will find through 2026 the integration of ECG as the ground truth married with PPG, EEG, which is the brain, possibly blood glucose, but we will find that we will be able to now develop neural nets that are using more than one biometric signal, with the idea being that we packet that to a body OS. So keep an eye on that. You'll hear more about it as we go through 2026, and it's something we're active in. But I can tell you from a shareholder's point of view, we've been granted our first patent, very little, if any, prior art. We believe we will continue to exploit and expand upon that very successfully through 2026. And I've got a huge shout out to our team and our friends at Wolf Greenfield. It's been a phenomenal pleasure working with them. Anybody that looks into the firm will realize they're the #1 life sciences firm on the planet. When it comes to IP, particularly in signals, they're also #1. We've got great people working with us right now. All right, let's talk a little bit quickly about regulatory and pathway. So, as I mentioned at the top, bringing in our own ability to in-house the regulatory process was foundational to us moving forward. It was very easy for me to make this decision. We know that in the US, we've got to get regulatory cleared through the FDA. We know in Canada, and we're active in Jamaica. I don't see us stopping. So as a result, we brought in Murnaz and Shiva to help us with that. They're fully integrated to our team. It is a cross-functional team, right? When you're going through the regulatory process, it's not just give it to a consultant, let them write. Everybody involved in the business at any level is participatory in this process. What you need are quarterbacks who've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, failed a bunch, succeeded a bunch, know where the booby traps are, and work with us day in and day out to help us get better all the time. That's what these guys are doing for us. So where are we at? We have got submissions in for clearance on max yield at the FDA. As soon as we get nod back from that, cardio yield goes in, and boom, we're in pipe. Same happening in Health Canada, max yield, cardio yield. And as you saw with an announcement probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, we're on track to begin that process in Jamaica come January. The reason I wanted to go into Jamaica, it is near and dear to my heart. This is a proxy to a bigger opportunity for all of us. I talked about how we could bring low cost, how I talked earlier about democratizing and making available ECG. Jamaica is the perfect environment for that. It is, I'll put it politely, a country that has certain levels of rural and remote parties that will never get access to cardiovascular disease detection or diagnostics. If we can bring into this environment a low cost single lead ECG device that we can give to virtually every citizen in that country, there's roughly 3 million people, maybe 4 million people in that country, 500,000 of these units spread across the country. Early detection is key. You wear it, it's on your phone, you use i360, you get a preliminary report, and downstream, anything serious goes into cardio yield, and you've got a follow-up by your physician, nurse practitioner, etc. Just something as simple as that helps crack the code and move the needle to those that can't get the type of diagnostics that we can get here almost literally for free in Canada and for very low dollars in the United States. So for me, the Jamaican opportunity represented a proxy into rural and remote communities, underserved markets that can't get access to our phenomenal technology. I think as we go through 2026, not only will we get through the clearance, but we will point to Jamaica as one of the first countries in the world where it's almost a foundational right for these people to get access to free and ubiquitous ECGs. I'm very excited about that. It's a bit near and dear to my heart, as they can obviously tell. Now, to keep us on the pathway of multiple jurisdictions beyond Canada, beyond the US and Jamaica, we've employed an entire quality management system. MDSAP is what they refer it to, and it's a QMS certification. It's done by third parties, but again, Murnaz and Shiva are driving that for us. So thank you to the team for this, but we have really doubled down on regulatory. The takeaway here is we believe within the first half of 2026, all the regulatory items you see on the board will be cleared for AIML. I can't guarantee that because a lot of this is directly out of our control. I can't push people at the FDA, nor can I do it at Health Canada or even Jamaica for that matter. But the fact is, we are on it every day and we will make best efforts to get it as early as possible. So kudos to the team for that. Thank you for their efforts. Now, let's talk a little bit about commercial traction. In June of this year, Esmet stepped in and started helping us. Esmet, our chief product officer, stepped in and got very granular on an awful lot of these deals. He worked hand in glove with our sales team. And I'm proud to announce that we've built sufficient pipeline right now that you're seeing roughly one announcement a week. Weeks that we miss, we double up the week after. So I would say fairly regularly, 3 to 4 deals per month right now. I think that'll likely continue through January. I refer to these as singles and doubles. These are smaller, pilot programs, small amounts of money, less than 100 grand. But more importantly, they're validation points and proof points to the growth and build out of our technology. What's not evidenced here is the number of discussions that we are having with multiple significant healthcare companies who are evaluating our technology. And I can't describe or get into the details on those because at the moment they are not material enough for us to make public announcements. But what I can tell you is my past experience has shown me that as we move through these discussions, I believe we will begin to see some further development beyond the type that we're doing now from the licensing point of view, and I'm quite excited about it. But for now, let me focus on what the team's been able to accomplish just in this last quarter. The top of the quarter, we announced what I refer to as a little bit of a baby pilot, but it's a very interesting one. We're literally taking a $100 Polar device, a chest wearable, marrying it to an ECG, and then putting it in a controlled study through BC Brain Wellness. I'm very excited because I talked earlier about the Body OS concept and the marrying up of the signals. This is one of those early proof points. Early in October, we began working with Toronto Heart Center to launch a pilot program. Most of that has been coming together quite nicely. I believe we'll probably enter the actual program itself going into January, and we'll see the results probably February and March. But this is working with Dr. Dorian and many of his colleagues to really A/B test cardio yield in a clinic to ensure we can walk the talk about the quality and the efficacy of the product. We announced middle of October Heart Dent. This is a similar clinic down in Jamaica. We announced mid to late October an interesting pilot. It will emerge through the balance of 2026. This is with a group of Canadian cardiac clinics. They've asked specifically to remain anonymous. I can tell you that there are over 12 of these clinics. They're in Ontario and BC, and we're actively doing a rollout with them right now. November 4th, the announcement of our cardio yield into submission in Jamaica. You can see how the regulatory plan, they all play off each other, taking our FDA efforts, rationalizing into our friends down in Jamaica and having them take that through worked really well for us. And then middle of November, we got the notice of the grant of our patent for the ECG neural net. That was quite foundational. Coming into the third-ish week of November, we announced a partnership, a pilot program, frankly, with the Hospital for Sick Children, what most people know colloquially as Sick Kids. This I cannot understate. This is probably one of the highest bars we had to come over, if you would, to identify and validate the quality of our neural net. And this one, keep an eye on. There's more to come here. That's quite exciting. End of November, you can believe it, we actually cut a deal with a group that does ECGs for horses. You wouldn't think of it as a big market, but actually it's about a $5 to $8 billion market, depending on how you want to look at it, but it's all around thoroughbreds, horse racing, and frankly, I believe the term studying the horses. But believe it or not, ECGs are central to an awful lot of the decisions, high value, high dollar decisions that get made around the horse. So you'll hear more about this. It's a market that came to us. We didn't go to it. And we're being pulled into a number of these types of discussions. Cornerstone, you may recall, we looked at doing pilots with them around our long COVID. That was a lot of fun. We've continued that relationship, and now we're working with them with Insight 360 and our single lead ECG capability. What's cool about that is we're using it with a bunch of high rocks performance athletes. So I think you're going to find some pretty surprising results coming out of Q1 on that. And then finally, we announced a deal with Cumulate H. These guys have a wonderful smart ring. Unbelievable what they're doing with this. Can't say enough about it. In fact, I don't know how much I can say about it until it's out in the market, which will be through Q1 and early Q2 next year. But it is the next generation for the wearable ring. So these are a glimpse into the type of traction we're converting as we go through Q4. The book is building. I expect us to continue the momentum through Q1. And in addition to these types of deals, I'm hopeful we can announce other broader deals that we're working with, but they, like the FDA and regulatory, are not in our control. We can push as we can, but everybody knows big companies move at their own rate. I'll just leave it at that. In any end, that is the update for 2025. It's been a blistering year. The team have done exceptional. Now I'd like to give you a little bit of a glimpse into where we're headed in 26. Not surprisingly, we're going to be focusing on commercial traction and revenue. We had great momentum coming out of Q4. I want to keep building it quarter over quarter. I want to be able to take a lot of these pilots and convert them to long-term multi-year license revenue. That's going to be great. We're going to stay hyper-focused on regulatory. Obviously, a lot of what we require in 2026, we need that check mark, so we're going to stay vigilant on it. Product, innovation, and platform expansion. We're already working on multiple versions beyond our 1 lead and 3 lead ECG. So this is 6, 12, 18 lead. We're working with PPG, and we're already looking at multi-signal analysis. So from my perspective, the opportunity to license our technology is enormous. Today, we're hyper-focused in the lane of ECG, but a next adjacent is PPG. And after that, there'll be something like EEG or blood glucose. All of these are eventually going to form as signals, but the ground truth in all of them will be the ECG. As the leader of the company, the fourth thing I will focus on is strengthening our people. My main goal here is to continue to top grade the best talent I can find to help us build and lead this company forward. We've got some phenomenal announcements coming down the pipe, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with shareholders. But everybody that is involved with our company goes through a fairly rigorous process now for recruiting, for selection, for team identification, behavioral interviewing, background, et cetera, et cetera. We believe we're building a formative team that is basically going to take AI into healthcare at a level that's never been done before. I know, again, these are broad claims, and I hope they don't sound too boastful, but it's what we're driving for every day. And then the final thing I want to leave with our shareholders is we now do have a platform. We now do have traction. We've got great capability. Now is the time to stand and claim our victory, promote our stock. It is an asymmetrical value right now. No one wants a 5-cent stock. We know we're going to grow it. The success is going to beget success, and this will be one of my top focuses as I go through 2026. Finally, here's a glimpse into our capital structure. I think for most people on the call, well aware of this. We're just going to continue to stay focused, continue to drive the business. As the stock goes, we've got access to some warrants. We'll be judicious in how we call those, but that will also help as we grow. But from there, guys, that's the update for 2025. Into 2026, I'm now ready and happy to talk to anybody about some questions. Thank you, Martin.
Paul, thank you very much. Very thorough. I appreciate that. Um, Questions here from the audience. Could you walk us through how the pilot programs work? I'm trying to better understand how and when these pilots could start to translate into revenue and how meaningful that revenue could be.
Yeah, sure. So, very top level, a pilot typically happens. I'll take a couple that are ongoing right now. We literally reach out to the clinic. We present to them cardio yield. They do a bit of a double click down on max yield, cardio yield, the Holter report, what's possible. They look at some of our materials. And generally speaking, within 2 or 3 meetings, they're asking us about pricing. And so oftentimes we'll put a small amount of price in place, mostly to help with early licensing, but you can't use cardio yield until it's regulated as part of the reimbursement model here in Canada or in the States where they want to charge. I mean, you can in certain instances, it's a bit complicated and we don't really want to get into that. What I'd rather do is put the pilot in for relatively low money with the assumption that once we have cleared regulatory, be it FDA or Health Canada, we would then up-res the price point to anything that is either current in the market or our new price point. So this could be a per seat, call it $2,500 US per seat per clinic, could be $15 per ECG. There'll be a multiple of ways for us to do that. Each clinic, I don't want to say is unique, but volume within the clinic has a large degree of how we would work on it.
You touched on it somewhat, but how does the reimbursement model work in the US for Medicare, Medicaid once regulated? How would people buy and pay for it? Does it get like a CPT code
Yeah, it's all that. Yeah.
and how does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking in the US specifically, there'll be a referring physician. You'll literally go to a clinic. You'll be hooked up with some form of a Holter, likely 3 lead. You'll go away, you wear it. In the US, there's a couple of ways. You can do Medicaid, insurance, or frankly, depending on the price point, and you see a lot of this in the US, where it's direct to consumer. In other words, they're paying cash out of their pocket for the Holter report. Could be $250, could be $400. So what we do is we work with the clinics, and we're literally launching this now to better understand where to feather in our technology into that process and at what price point. So it could be as low as a few dollars per Holter, or it could be as high as $100 per Holter. We'll learn that as we go. But ultimately, we can either do reimbursement or we can do cash. I think we're going to end up seeing a combination of both in the US.
Will there be a specific reimbursement for it, or will the motivation factor be just the gains in efficiency and call it
Oh, no, no,
accuracy?
no. No, no. This would be, when we're cleared, it's a three
Yeah.
lead Holter. These charge codes have been around both in Canada and the US for decades. Yeah, we're not creating new charge codes. We just feather right into the existing ones. That's the beauty of it.
Okay. All right. And then you would get paid because that's on a per usage basis. So then you would get a cut of that per usage code.
Yep. So what would happen is they would take a license. And let's say they did, I don't know, 500 Holters a month. And depending on the charge code for that, it could be 100, could be 300, could be more per. We would get a component of that price point. The key thing here, Martin, is the capacity and throughput increase. So if they are getting, in theory, we'll just use numbers for math, 100 per Holter, and we're able to double or triple the capacity from the single technician that's doing it, their core unit economics stay the same, while their revenue opportunity goes up 3x. So we are a significantly attractive solution in a pay for performance model type of healthcare like it is in the US. In Canada, it's a bit different. It's more cost conscious and budget friendly. So, can we do more Holters with the existing budget so that we can get more reimbursement, but it's not driven from a profit motive? I hope that makes sense. But in
All
both
right.
cases, we would fit into pre-existing charge codes.
What would the business model or revenue model look like in the non-regulated market?
That is my favorite market. For two reasons. It can be anything we want right now because we're at the top of the hill when it comes to ECG. But it will look something like this. May change a bit, but it'll rhyme with this. There will be a license fee to use and install the max yield neural net on your device or on your smartphone. And depending on the number of devices, that could be a very substantial license. We are speaking to a number of device manufacturers about this right now. The interesting part about all of this is when you see i360 and the quantum of data and output we are able to produce, it gets very interesting around how we can tier and price ourselves into the wellness market. It's not your same old, same old. Anybody in wearables knows PPGs. It's the light that you see on the watch, on your ring, maybe on your strap. Very limited in its utility, and by most cases is not accurate enough to do much more than basically measure your heart rate while you're sleeping and barely moving in bed. Everything else, little bit of a gamble on the efficacy and the quality of the data that you're getting presented. We solve that problem. The parties we talk to in the wearable space know it, they're excited about it, and we're now in discussions around term sheets to basically license the tech into them.
Can you comment on whether the company is currently in discussions with any tech providers and how those conversations are going?
Well, again, I want to be sensitive to, be careful how I say this. We are talking to, and it's not a few, it's a lot of, I'll call them large health tech companies. We are also talking to pretty much all the top brands that have wearables. It's no secret in the market that the new battleground will be ECG. And what I mean by that is when you get into this space in the wearable industry, this is the unregulated market. PPG, the light-based approach, is the predominant biomeasurement that is out there. Of the, call it 500 million wearable devices on the planet right now in use, 95 to 98% of them will use PPG at some level. When you use ECGs, the amount and quality of data that you can get over PPG is astronomical. All these wearable devices know it, and all of them are now moving through their product roadmaps to include ECG as part of their product offer. That, Martin, is where we fit, coming into those new releases. Interestingly enough, what we will disclose through the Q1 and into Q2 is a product we call Max Yield PPG. We brought it out a little bit earlier this year. We pulled it back because we were far too focused on ECG and our cardio yield product. But we have built the same type of neural net for PPG. This is something that we believe will have great interest with the existing incumbents in the wearable space. And we'll focus on that through Q1 and Q2 of next year. I believe we'll start to see some substantial gains there through Q3 and Q4. But it's my belief that both ECG and PPG will be the predominant footprint for wearables over the next 5 years. Just makes the most sense. So I'm excited about that. On the regulated, It's we if you know them all, they're the big guys. They have ECG recording devices, implantables, all of that. We talk to them all. They're all interested in our signal technology.
As you move into your next phase of commercialization, how are you thinking about scaling? There's so many clinics, especially in the United States, going clinic by clinic sounds like it could be very slow and resource intensive. How are you going to
Yeah.
get that efficient scaling process in place?
Well, it's interesting. So in the US, I don't know, I wouldn't say this is quote a secret. I think it's just evolved this way. There is a substantial roll-up effort happening across all forms of healthcare clinics, cardiovascular just being one. So the key is to get up into the top of the pyramid and actually sell our solution from a, frankly, P&L point of view into these aggregators so that they can take cardio yield and push it into dozens, if not hundreds of clinics at a time. And so that is something that we are very focused on and we'll begin to pursue pretty actively in January because we've now got visibility to dates with cardio yield coming down the pipe on regulatory. In Canada, it's a little less. There aren't really quote aggregators. There are clinics that have, I'll call them a few tens, I'll call it. There's bigger groups like TELUS Health and others. We could talk with them. But the truth of it is, in Canada, I don't view that as our broad market. I'm happy to work in a couple of clinics across Canada. I think it's phenomenal what we can do here. But for scale, it's down in the US and working within that clinic model. And the best way to do that is to get into the apex predators that are rolling them up for efficiencies. They're rationalizing costs, they're rationalizing capability. We want to be one of the tools that help drive that for them.
Is there an opportunity to maybe partner with one of the incumbent equipment providers in the space so that you're sort of the default software that goes in with it and then leverage their sales and distribution platform?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is 100%, without a question. We speak to, I'll put it politely, several of these particular incumbents. What I was showing in one of those slides is there are dozens and dozens of ECG recording devices, 1 lead, 3 lead, 6, 12, believe it or not, 15, 18 lead devices. There's implantables that you put on your body. And there are all new form factors of unregulated wearable devices from shirts to, even, headphones now. They're finding things like PPG and heartbeat coming off the back of your pulse. Like there's so many ways that you can get access to the ECG. It's all about the quality of that signal and what you can do with it. So absolutely, all of the folks that are incumbents, we would love them to license the tech, utilize not just max yield, but downstream the exploit, Insight 360 and or cardio yield. That's why we built the platform. That's why we are basically going into market like that.
Can you speak to your prior exits and successes and the AIML team's capital markets experience?
Yeah, I mean, well, everybody follows me. You can just Google me. But I built, sold pretty much four software companies, two in the public markets. A lot of people know me from my hologram businesses. Those are kind of fun. Last couple of years for me, it's been about finding really unique opportunities where I can take my experience, my network, my capital, and really help scale a business. I have to tell you, pardon the pun, when I got involved in AIML, the thing just grabbed my heart and I ran with it because I recognized early that neural nets themselves held the true promise of solving a humanity scale problem. In my prior companies, I've done that. My computer-based training company was all about eradicating computer literacy. That was a nice exit for me. I think it was around 2003. I built producttraining.com, exited that in '08. The hologram business, Next Tech. I mean, all these businesses have been about back of the napkins to foundational companies with big BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. This one, I would have to say, is the culmination of a lot of that coming to the forefront. Never before have I been involved with the quality and caliber of team that just somewhat serendipitously come into our orbit. I believe because we're building a technology that literally can lever up and leverage access, democratize that ECG. We're being given access to some of the best minds, some of the best capability. The last thing I worry about is raising capital. Between my network and the network of our shareholders, I'm not worried about that. My track record speaks for itself. The team that I'm involved in speaks for itself. I'm super proud of it. So for me, it's about finding the best people, continuing to iterate the best product, and solving what I believe is one of humanity's biggest issues. And I know it sounds a bit boastful, but that little baby ECG, it's the fulcrum point where we can get the highest amount of leverage from the least amount of input. That's what I'm proud of, Martin. So yeah, no, I think we got a great team.
All right. Can you talk about your capital markets strategy? And you're clear you're running an efficient business and just the burn rate, let's say, of how that is operating.
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, we're, like every little Canadian small startup on the CSE. It's, I don't want to call it just-in-time financing, but you want to be very careful about how you raise your capital, how you spend it, when you spend it, and what you spend it on. From our perspective, I've tried to maintain a very low burn, if you can believe it, of the capital we've raised and the products, the people, and the outputs that we've been able to achieve, to be frank. We use a lot of AI to build our AI. I mean, it's a huge lever point, but you would never get close to being able to do what we've accomplished in 2025 in a past climate. You need the AI technologies and enablement tools. You need the best people. I happen to have a lot of them on speed dial. A lot of them work with us in our business, and they continue to attract their people. So I've never really been too afraid, Martin, about our spend, about our burn. I know as we go forward, any one of the deals that we talk about could turn our business cash flow positive. In fact, like all things, we'll likely start with chunky little couple hundred grand licenses that'll evolve into seven-figure licenses. There'll be pan deals across organizations. There'll be a hybrid model of pay as you go versus a minimum guarantee. All these things will come into focus through Q1 and Q2 for us as we begin to sell into the US market, as we get closer to our regulatory grants. I'm very excited about that. So, no, Mar, I don't lay awake worrying about capital.
How is the unregulated marketplace seeing the strength and dependability of the neural net? Are there real world demonstrations, let's say, available on YouTube to view?
I don't know. We might have some on YouTube. We generally don't. I mean, there's some of these guys we work with. It's highly confidential, so we could never say, "Hey, here's what we validated. Here's what we found." But what I would propose is for those that are interested, let's just pay attention through Q1. We use a pretty cool device called MoveSense out of Finland. You can buy it right off their website. It is the device that we're working with down in Jamaica. That thing you just buy, put it on, record the ECG, and upload it to Insight 360. I mean, if you message us, I'm happy to set you up with a trial account and you can play with it. But it's like lightning in a bottle, you know? And part of the reason, we worked with Adam Brown and his team at Cornerstone was to really tame what these reports can look like depending on my use. So if I'm a performance athlete and I'm getting all this access to the visibility of my heart, what type of reports should I be generating and looking at and tracking to let me know how I'm improving? If I've got a sleep concern or a recovery concern, what type of reports should I be looking at and what is it telling me? And then if I'm looking for weight loss, nutrition, metabolic, again, wear this single lead ECG, use i360, and let the reports tell you basically how you're progressing. So these will all come into focus, Martin, as we go through Q1. But I can tell you right now, just the early stuff we're working on, it's going to be better than anything that's out there. Yeah.
When did you provide give your FDA submission, your 510(k) submission?
Well, there's a couple, right? So the first one went out, and we may have press released this. It might have been May. And then we've had a couple of subsequent ones that have gone in. So it's just an ongoing, and it's tough to answer that directly because there's max yield, there's cardio yield, and we got the equivalents here in Canada. And then down in Jamaica, we're taking a lot of the FDA packaged information, reformatting and putting it into Jamaica. So I don't want to say it's, we have a very large table that we measure this by. And so the earliest was in May, and then we're just continually putting these updates in. What I will say is we're in continual discussions with the FDA. How's that?
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
gotten some commentary back from the
Oh, no,
FDA
no,
on your
we're in
submission.
discussions. Yeah, yeah.
All right. We are at over an hour here. I believe we need to wrap things up. So, just the final thing is for the next, let's say, quarter or 2 quarters, what sort of milestones or expectations or types of news releases should viewers and investors expect to see coming over the wires? What kinds of things should we be expecting?
Well, what I would look for is more of the same. Pilot programs that are getting us into regulatory clinics, wearables that are looking to do licensing deals with us. Interestingly, it's now not just wearables for, I'll call it humans. There's also, to put it politely, non-human. Sounds crazy, but it's the horses I mentioned, but dogs, cats, mice, etc. There's a variety of uses there that, again, these markets find us and pull us into them, which is unique and interesting. And these are not trivial markets. These are multi-billion dollar segments, virtually untapped for groups like ours. So you'll hear more of those. What I would pay attention to as well is some of the people we announced joining our team, the quality of their backgrounds, what they've done in the past, and where we believe they'll take us going into the future. That is another great early indicator to success. Patents are something that we will continue to announce, but we will do it in a very discretionary way because it is a foot race when it comes to AI and innovation. And so I need to balance the disclosure with where we're at because it's to protect our IP. And so I may not come out forcefully with a bunch of press releases around IP, but I'm happy to host webinars and meetings to discuss the technology at that level, just not within anything that would be, quote, too divulge, if you would. The other thing I would say is pay attention to our regulatory announcements. They are going to be forthcoming. And those things, Martin, in combination, will make for a fantastic Q1 and Q2.
With that, are there any final comments you want to make before we wrap it up here?
I do. And thank you for that. I will take 1 minute. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you feel that the progress we've made has been as what I would refer to as substantial as I believe it to be. I think we have a phenomenal team. I want to thank all of our shareholders for your patience, your opportunities. I know a number of you reach out to me offering, hey, can we help? Can we make introductions? Can we try? Please keep it coming. I love speaking with shareholders. You can see, given how fast we've grown, it's been a little challenging on my time, but as we add more bodies through Q1, my time will open up. The final thing I want to say is to everybody, have a happy and safe holiday. We want everybody back fully recharged, working with us day in and day out. But now's the time to take a little bit off, be with the family, recharge, and let's crush it in 2026. So that's it, Martin. Thanks very much.
All right. With that, I thank you. I wish you a happy holiday and a great new year. And for everyone, yeah, a prosperous and healthy and well 2026. All the best and talk to you again soon.